And moving on, my next guest has a truly remarkable and terrifying story to share. She discovered that she's a target of an Iranian assassination attempt. Saskia Pantell, a Swedish Zionist activist, joins us now in the studio. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so first of all, what can you tell us about this sort of assassination plot? How did you find out about it? I know that when you first found out about it, you thought it was a prank or a joke. So what can you tell us?
Well, it was extremely surreal. I got a phone call one day here in Israel. Somebody saying they were calling from the Swedish security services, SAPO, and that I was the target of an assassination terror plot by the Iranian state to kill 3 Swedish Jewish citizens. So
what made you specifically a target? Maybe you can tell us a little bit about the work that you're doing and why Iran would specifically target you.
Sure. Well, I've been very active in the Zionist world and Zionist Federation for many years. I started as the vice president, became the president of the Zionist Federation nationally in Sweden. So I used to hold a lot of rallies for Israel and against anti-Semitism. And I saw myself as working for good, and I felt that I was protected in a country, especially a country like Sweden. So I believe that I became a target because I was using my voice and speaking up against hate.
Mm-hmm. And has the threat been neutralized? What can you tell us about that?
So they arrested 2 people who pretended to be Afghani refugees, and they came with the refugee wave back in 2015. It was later discovered that Swedish authorities had been warned. One of them was flagged twice before getting asylum, that he was not Afghani, but actually connected to the Iranian regime, which it later turned out to be. They were thankfully arrested prior to even moving forward with the terror plans, but Sweden did not manage to convict them. They were deported, they were released back to Iran. And all of this came up also thanks to Swedish radio, who did an investigative piece, linking this also to the Iranian embassy in Stockholm. And this is where I'm not sure about the threat being eliminated because, okay, 2 agents were sent back to Iran, but if they're working with the embassy, and the embassy is part of doing espionage on Swedish territory against Swedish citizens, there's a huge problem.
Absolutely. And so is Sweden doing anything now to investigate, to make sure that this threat has been eliminated?
Their response to all of this is that they consider the threat gone because these 2 people are deported. I don't believe that that's the case, because if Sweden doesn't do something thorough about this, start off by cutting the diplomatic ties with Iran, why have an embassy that's also linked to terror plan to Swedish citizens? They need to take further measures. They have been questioned in regards to how they handled the asylum for these 2 people. And they basically just stated that it's passed, it worked out for the better that they were caught, but that's not good enough.
Mm-hmm. And have you been back to Sweden since you've discovered of this assassination attempt?
Yes, I did go back 3 weeks into the war here in Israel with my baby girl and my family. It's different being in Israel during a war now as a mother, but I only stayed for 2 weeks, and it was a very hard decision because I felt I should not have to fear for my child's safety from sirens and being under missile attacks here in Israel, from also Iran, being behind Hamas or Hezbollah, or going to Sweden, where I'm also threatened by Iran, but on an individual level. So it shouldn't be that. If you're a Swedish citizen, you should feel like you can go back to Sweden and be protected.
And so from what I'm hearing, you still have a concern for your life should you leave Israel, should you travel abroad. Here in Israel, do you feel safe?
Yes, only in Israel.
Only in Israel. And back in Sweden, you didn't feel safe. You were still concerned for
I didn't
the
feel
threat.
safe, but also prior to this happening, I've had so many death threats over at least a decade's amount of time for being an activist. And I tried to get hidden identity for 10 years in Sweden, and they just kept telling me they only do so if there's an actual threat. Now there is a threat, and they say it's gone, but it doesn't feel that way. And at the end of the day, it's also not about me. It's about every Swedish citizen. Sweden let these people in, and it endangers Swedish citizens, regardless if they were born in Iran originally and came as political refugees, fleeing from the Ayatollah and the regime, or if they, like me, I was born in America. I'm an American citizen also, and I came to Sweden and thought I could live there safely, but turned out not to be the case.
So an unfortunate situation in Sweden. And thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story with us.
Thank you for having me.